Blood stained the divorce papers as Miranda sliced her finger against their crisp edge, the physical pain nothing compared to the words Alexander had just spoken. I've fallen for someone else, someone younger. 20 years of marriage, demolished in a single sentence. Her hands trembled as she looked up at the man she'd built an empire with, the father of her children, and revealed what she'd kept hidden for weeks. I was waiting for our anniversary to tell you, I have stage 3 cancer. The doctors give me 18 months. Alexander's face drained of color. Everything he thought he wanted, freedom, youth, a fresh start, suddenly seemed hollow against the weight of what he stood to lose. The brilliant woman who had been his rock through building a tech dynasty worth billions, the mother of his children, the keeper of his darkest insecurities. Miranda. He whispered, but she was already gathering her things, her long silver-streaked hair falling forward to hide tears she refused to let him see. Don't worry about the prenup, she said with surprising steadiness. Take your girlfriend, your freedom. But know this, I built half of Horizon Tech while you were the face. The board doesn't know it was my algorithm that saved the company during the crash. She walked toward the door of their penthouse, leaving him frozen in place. I wonder what they'll do when they find out. If you're feeling the tension right now, give this video a like. The journey we're about to witness is one of life's most powerful lessons about love, loyalty, and what truly matters. Miranda stepped into the elevator, her perfect posture betraying nothing of the storm raging within. At 52, she still turned heads, her figure maintained through disciplined exercise, her mind sharper than most of the 20-something executives who assumed her only qualification was being Alexander's wife. What nobody knew was that she had secretly written most of the code that had made Horizon Tech a household name while Alexander charmed investors and the press. That night, alone in the guest house of their Hamptons estate, Miranda scrolled through old photographs, their wedding day, the birth of their twins now away at college, the opening of their first office in a converted garage. Her secret repository of company files glowed on her laptop screen. With a few keystrokes, she could reveal that Alexander had been taking credit for her work for years. Instead, she closed the computer and made a different call. Rachel? It's Miranda. I need you to pull everything we have on Callista more. Alexander's 28-year-old marketing director had been photographed with him at increasingly frequent business dinners over the past 3 months. By morning, Miranda had a decision to make. Fight for her marriage or walk away with her dignity and half of everything they'd built. But there was a third option forming in her mind, one that would test every principle she'd ever held. Anyone who's ever faced betrayal knows the crossroads Miranda stands at. Drop a comment with what you think she should do, fight, leave, or something else entirely. Alexander wasn't sleeping either. In his downtown penthouse, he paced before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city they'd conquered together. Callista had been blowing up his phone, but all he could think about was the look in Miranda's eyes when she told him about her diagnosis. He poured another scotch, remembering how they'd met in college, him, the charismatic business major with big dreams, her, the brilliant computer science student who'd helped him turn those dreams into reality. You never told her, did you? His best friend Marcus had asked earlier that evening. That she was the brains behind most of your success. She never wanted the spotlight, Alexander had justified, but even to his own ears, the words rang hollow. 6 weeks later, the news broke, Alexander Blackwood, billionaire tech mogul, had moved out of the family mansion. Stock prices at Horizon Tech plummeted as rumors swirled. What nobody expected was Miranda's next move. Mrs. Blackwood has requested an emergency board meeting, his assistant informed him, interrupting his lunch with Callista. On what grounds? Alexander demanded, already reaching for his suit jacket. She didn't say, but she's bringing her lawyer. The boardroom fell silent as Miranda walked in, looking radiant despite the weight loss from her first rounds of chemotherapy. Her silver-streaked hair was cut into a chic bob, her white suit impeccable. Without glancing at Alexander, she took a seat directly opposite him. I've called this meeting to discuss the future of Horizon Tech, she began, her voice steady. For 20 years, I've been content to work in the shadows. That ends today. If you're invested in what happens next, make sure to hit subscribe. This story of courage and reckoning is just hitting its turning point. The board members exchanged glances as Miranda opened her laptop and projected a series of code repositories onto the main screen. These are the original algorithms that built our security platform, our cloud infrastructure, and our AI interface. I wrote them all. She clicked through to email exchanges, timestamps, and development logs, indisputable proof that she had been the technical genius behind Horizon's success. Alexander felt the room spinning. Not because this was news to him, he'd always known, but because the careful narrative he'd constructed for the world was crumbling before his eyes. Callista, seated in the back of the room, was staring at him with dawning comprehension. "I'm not here to destroy anything we've built," Miranda continued. "But in light of recent, personal developments, I believe the company deserves transparency about its leadership." She looked directly at Alexander for the first time. "And I deserve credit for my work." That night, alone in his penthouse, Alexander found himself looking at old videos, Miranda explaining complex coding problems to him with infinite patience, Miranda rocking their newborn twins while simultaneously debugging a system crash, Miranda standing in his shadow at countless press conferences while he took the applause. His phone rang. "Callista. I think we should take a step back," she said before he could speak. "I didn't sign up to be the villain in someone else's love story." "Is that what you think this is?" Alexander asked quietly. "Isn't it?" she countered. "I've seen how you look at her, Alexander. Not like someone you're ready to leave." 2 more months passed. Miranda's treatment progressed with cautious optimism from her doctors. The board had unanimously voted to recognize her as co-founder and CTO of Horizon Tech, a position she'd functionally held for years without the title or compensation. She was thriving professionally even as she fought physically, showing up to treatments in boardroom-ready attire, refusing to let cancer define her. Alexander watched from a distance, showing up at doctor's appointments that she never asked him to attend, sending flowers she returned. Their children, home from college after learning of their mother's illness, barely spoke to him. "You need to fix this," his daughter Sophia told him bluntly during a tense dinner. "Not because of the company, not because of how it looks. Because Mom still loves you, and I think you still love her." "It's not that simple," Alexander started. "Actually, it is," his son Ethan interrupted. "You messed up. The question is whether you're brave enough to try making it right. If you're feeling the weight of this moment, give this video a thumbs up. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones we most need to hear." On their 20th anniversary, the day Miranda had planned to tell him about her diagnosis, Alexander stood outside her door, a small box in his hand. When she answered, the surprise in her eyes nearly undid him. "I know I have no right to be here," he began. "Then why are you?" Her voice was cool, but he noticed she didn't close the door. "Because 20 years ago today, I married the most brilliant woman I've ever known. And then I spent 2 decades taking her for granted, taking credit for her genius, and convincing myself I deserved more than I already had." Miranda's expression didn't change. "That's an accurate assessment." "I don't expect forgiveness," Alexander continued. "I don't even expect you to believe me. But I need you to know that walking away from you was the biggest mistake of my life, not just because you're sick, but because you're everything. Always have been." He handed her the small box. Inside wasn't jewelry as she might have expected, but a flash drive. "What's this?" she asked. "Every interview I've done in the last month, acknowledging that you were the real innovator behind Horizon. Every magazine that wanted to profile the power couple of tech, only this time with the truth about who did what. And..." He paused, "the papers dissolving my relationship with Callista. She ended things months ago, actually. Said she refused to be part of breaking up a love story that wasn't finished." Miranda studied him, looking for any trace of the charming insincerity she'd become so attuned to over the years. Finding none, she finally asked the question that had haunted her since his betrayal: "Why, Alexander? After everything we built together, why her?" He looked away, then forced himself to meet her gaze. "Because I was terrified of getting older. Of becoming irrelevant. Of you realizing you didn't need me, that you never had." His voice broke. "It was never about her. It was about me not feeling worthy of you, and running before you could leave me." For those of us who've ever feared being truly seen, this moment hits hard. Comment below if you've experienced this kind of vulnerability. Sometimes our greatest fears drive our worst decisions. 3 months later, Miranda sat in her oncologist's office, gripping Alexander's hand as they received the news: her cancer was responding to treatment. Not a remission yet, but a fighting chance. Outside in the parking lot, they stood in silence before Alexander spoke. "I know we're not back together. I know I haven't earned that. But thank you for letting me be here today." Miranda studied the man she'd spent half her life with, the laughter lines around his eyes deeper now, silver threading through his hair at the temples. The past 6 months had aged him, humbled him in ways 20 years of success never had. "I'm not staying because I've forgiven you," she said carefully. "I'm staying because I'm curious." About? About whether the man I'm seeing now, the one who finally acknowledges my contribution, who shows up to every appointment, who rebuilt relationships with our children, is the real Alexander, or just a temporary performance of remorse. He nodded slowly. "That's fair. More than fair. The thing is," Miranda continued, "I didn't just lose my husband when you left. I lost my best friend. The person who made me laugh even when I was furious with him. The only person who understood what it meant to build something from nothing." Alexander took a chance and reached for her hand. "I miss my best friend too." The final board meeting of the year marked a turning point for Horizon Tech. With Miranda and Alexander presenting as a united front, professionally, at least, they unveiled a new division focused on medical technology, inspired by Miranda's treatment journey. What nobody expected was the announcement that followed. "Effective immediately, I'll be stepping back from day-to-day operations," Alexander told the stunned board members. "Miranda will assume the role of CEO, with me transitioning to a strategic advisory position." Later, in the privacy of her office, Miranda confronted him. "What are you doing, Alexander? This company has been your life." "No," he corrected quietly. You've been my life. The company was just what we built together. And it's time I acknowledged that you were always the better leader." If this story of redemption and second chances resonates with you, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content that explores the complexity of human relationships. On the 1-year anniversary of her diagnosis, Miranda stood before the mirror, running her hands through hair that was finally growing back, shorter than before, with more silver than brown, but hers. The doctors were cautiously using the word remission, though she knew enough about cancer to understand it would be years before she could truly exhale. A knock at the door revealed Alexander, dressed for the small celebration their children had planned. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "I look different," she corrected. "Beautiful," he insisted. "And exactly like yourself." The evening was intimate, just their children, a few close friends, and the medical team that had guided Miranda's treatment. Alexander remained in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly without inserting himself into the spotlight. It was a new role for him, but one he'd grown into over the past year. As the night wound down, Miranda found herself alone with him on the terrace of the home they'd once shared, looking out at the city lights. "I filed the paperwork to officially rename the Horizon Foundation," he told her. "From now on, it will be the Miranda Blackwood Foundation for Women in STEM." She turned to him, genuinely surprised. "Alexander, you didn't have to do that." "I know," he said. "I wanted to. It's time the world associated the Blackwood name with the right person." Miranda studied him in the soft lighting. "You've changed." "I had to," he admitted. I almost lost everything that mattered because I couldn't see what was right in front of me. She was quiet for a long moment before asking, and now? What do you see now? A second chance I don't deserve but desperately want. He took a breath. I'm not asking you to forget this year, or the 20 before it. I'm asking if there's room in your future for us to rewrite our story, the true story this time, with your name where it belongs. For anyone who's ever had to decide whether to rebuild or walk away, you know the weight of this moment. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this story of reckoning and redemption. 6 months later, industry insiders were shocked when Horizon Tech announced its groundbreaking new medical AI platform, one that had been developed primarily in secret by Miranda during her treatment. What made headlines wasn't just the technology's potential to revolutionize cancer detection, but the fact that every press release, interview, and public statement positioned Miranda as the visionary behind it. My role was mostly getting coffee and offering moral support, Alexander joked to reporters, though the pride in his eyes when he looked at her was unmistakable. That night, after the press conference, they returned to the beach house they now shared part-time, not the mansion they'd built during Horizon's rise, but a simpler place where they'd vacationed when the twins were small and money was still tight. You didn't have to downplay your involvement today, Miranda told him as they walked along the shore. The marketing strategy was all you. Maybe, he acknowledged. But I've had enough spotlights for one lifetime. It's your turn. She stopped walking, turning to face him fully. The wind caught her hair, now a striking silver bob that framed her face perfectly. I've been thinking about what you said. About rewriting our story. Alexander waited, hardly breathing. I'm not the same woman I was before all this, she said carefully. Cancer changes you. So does betrayal. I know, he said quietly. But I'm not sure I want to be that woman anymore anyway. Miranda took his hand, surprising him. She was brilliant, yes, but she also let herself be eclipsed. She accepted less than she deserved, professionally and personally. She deserved everything, Alexander said, his voice rough with emotion. Yes, she did. Miranda smiled slowly. And so do I. Which is why I've decided that I'm willing to try again, not picking up where we left off, but starting something new. Something honest. Alexander drew her closer, hardly believing what he was hearing. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that decision. I know, she said simply. That's why I'm making it. In the fading light, with the waves crashing around them, Alexander and Miranda sealed their new beginning with a kiss that felt both familiar and entirely new, like coming home to a place you've never been before. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Remember that sometimes the end is just the beginning of a better, more authentic chapter. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to rewrite your story, with the truth finally at its center.